Welcome to the Wednesday, July 28th, 2021 virtual Littleton Board of Health Zoom meeting. So we've got a lot on the agenda tonight. So we'll start off at 7 o'clock with the public hearing on 10 Mill Lane, a variance request for fill requirements from Soil Smith Designs and Doug Smith. You can unmute and show us your plans, Doug.
Doug, you're muted.
Yep.
There we go. Doug, you can go ahead now.
Do you need help?
I think I'm good.
Can you say something?
So I'm requesting that variance. The system is in, it got installed. It's very tight to, for the installer to fit the system in. And at this point, the breakout fill has become an issue. It's right up against the stone wall boundary. Some actually went over the boundary, and in an effort to make things right and fix it, we're asking for this variance for regulation 23. Put a poly barrier about 6 feet from the existing Presby system, and that would allow the 3-to-1 slope after that to fit. And Jim Gariffi and I met with the installer on the site and looked at different scenarios to make this right, to get it to fit and maintain the regulations. And this is what was decided would be a alternative way to make everything work, if the board will entertain this variance.
Doug, do you have a plan you can share with us so we can see the
I was-
yard dimensions?
I emailed Janet the other day asking to see if someone could share it, one of the board members. I have trouble doing that from my computer, so I don't know if someone can possibly open the plan up.
I mean, we can look at, if everybody wants to go back to their email and see the items that Janet has sent us. I suppose we could do that.
That would be possible. That would be helpful because I have trouble getting that to come up.
Janet, could you please post that to a share screen?
Unfortunately, I can't because my other computer is where it is. This is just for my Zoom.
Kevin, can you do it?
I can't. I cannot do it. But I just have one question for Jim, if that's all right, for Lisa, with Lisa.
Sure, go ahead.
Jim, how did this happen?
Well, my understanding how it happened was so it is kind of a tight backyard. It's got kind of a weird land shape. The house, and then the ground rises above to the side of the house. There's some trees along the edge. We had to do a number of test holes because we're kind of, figuring out where the ledge was, make sure we could site this. I don't know if it happened because the installer moved it to get away from a tree. Maybe Doug can shed some light on it, but when it was installed, I do my measurements, doing an as-built plan and looking at the approved plan saying, geez, the fill doesn't seem to be, it seems to be, exceeding where we expected it to be. That's when I called the installer and talked to Doug, said, hey, I don't think it's in the right spot. Or I should say in the spot it was approved. And so, you're faced with, do you tear a whole system out? Is this a reasonable accommodation? So I said, it doesn't cost anything. Go talk to the board about whether this would be a reasonable accommodation.
So the stone wall was on the plan. It just ended up being a lot closer to the system than expected?
So I think, and again, Doug can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the leaching area shifted towards the stone wall more than it was designed originally, which caused the fill to kind of creep over the stone wall. And that's kind of what, both measuring from the house and looking at the plan, that's what kind of clued me into the fact that it had shifted because the fill on the approved plan stayed inside the stone wall.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. That's what happened. The original plan did have it far enough so it wouldn't have made it. There was a very, very large tree that that did cause this whole system to get moved. And when I went to do my second as-built for final fill, I saw how the fill and the wall were coming together, and I knew there was a problem, and something has to be done. So it is, as Jim said, it's a very, very tight backyard. We did test pits. We did a lot of test pits. We hit part of the old system. There's some parts where there's ledge, so it's a very, very difficult site, and just trying to do the best we can to have this upgraded system functional.
I just texted it to Kevin and Mike on your phone if you want to.
But I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been looking at it since you've been talking. So
Okay. Dan, did you have a question?
I did. I guess I hear that it was a difficult lot trying to fit this in. I guess I'm trying to figure out, one, we've heard it's moved. It was installed closer to the stone wall, closer to the boundary than it was originally designed. Do we know what exactly that number is? Is it 6 inches? Are we looking at 4 or 5 feet? What is what was the original offset and what is the as-built offset from this?
It moved about 6 feet closer to the wall. It originally would have been, I think, 17 feet away. Now it's like 11 feet away.
11 feet away.
At the closest point, the wall goes at a little bit of an angle. So as you get further away from the house, it gets a little bit closer. They actually did some other things to help make this fit too. They moved a shed, which tried to make more room for the system also. But as we know now, it's too close.
6 feet seems like a more than a minor error. That's,
Yes.
if we're looking at 6 inches, even a foot, 6 feet on a lot that you've said was incredibly difficult to work around. I guess that's concerning from our perspective, or at least from my perspective, and from an installer perspective. That is a significant error that has now created an issue that you're looking for a variance to fix an installer error with fill going over a stone wall into an abutting property. It's never mind the boundary level. You're already into somebody else's property with your fill. I've got concerns about the installer, and I'm not sure if Jim may want to be following up with the other side from an installer perspective, but this is a significant issue, I think, certainly for an approved septic installer for our town to be making that large an error and creating an issue on an abutting property.
Are there any abutters here tonight?
Were they notified?
Yeah, they were all notified,
Yes,
certified mail.
Darian Fitzgerald.
All right, we'll get to Marion shortly. Does anybody have any other questions for Jim or Doug? Do you know anything?
Well, I don't know, 6 feet, I can agree with them. But is anything else they can do? I mean, is there any way they can manipulate a little bit extra room?
Yeah, we looked at the other direction when we had the on-site meeting, the installer, Jim and myself, and they had dug out on the other side to see if the bed bottom would be okay, and it was. But it all came to play on this huge tree that would have to be cut, and I don't think, once we go that direction, if it was to be moved, I don't think the system would be over the very best soil that you can get on the lot. I think where it is now, it's probably
The best place.
better as far as the bed bottom and the natural soil under from the testing we did. So that's the only drawback if the system has to get moved further away. I think we're putting in a spot not quite as good. And the tree expense, of course.
I can see that there might be a problem. Seem like Mike and Jim, does he have any question?
Jim, do you offer any solutions at all, or?
Well, so, the solution would have been to kind of, to avoid the variance would have been to slide the thing back over and put the system where it was designed. Doug's correct. There's a big, large tree there. Again, I don't know if when it was staked out, there was an issue, whether it was when it was excavated, there was an issue. But, the whole thing's installed, whether that's reasonable to pull the whole system out to move it over 6 feet. Maybe that is the solution the board decides.
Yeah, they're so close. We never, sometimes you can't get away from it. There is always some exception. And if you feel that is okay, I don't think I have a problem. If there's nothing else they can do, I mean, if that's the best place they can put it, only 6 feet away, I hope they don't make a habit. Too bad, And it's hard to get rid of a big tree like that, probably.
Mike, you had a question or a statement?
Just a question, that is that two things. The tree wasn't exactly a secret the whole time. I mean, it was there. And I'm interested in, other than the obvious answer about money, was the soil tested in and around the tree? Do you know for a fact that, as opposed to speculation, that the soil is less appropriate?
Doug, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, with all the test pits we did, there was more depth on some of the ones where the system is now than the depth when you get closer to that tree. I think we would still make the setback of groundwater offset, but it's definitely not as deep as where it is now. We did a lot of test holes, I think 5 or 6. We just kept digging all over the place on that lot. It was very, very difficult.
I just have a follow-up question for Jim, and this is the last one I got on this. Are there alternative approaches other than, shall we say, moving the current configuration? In other words, are there other technologies, other systems that could be used to address this lot problem, period?
You have the footprint of the system, which is requiring the set amount of fill to meet Title V. He's asking for to put a barrier in to help reduce some of that fill on the stone wall side, and that would help pull it back from the stone wall. Short of that, there's no technology that would make the system really smaller. It's really the footprint that it needs to be for the house that's there.
I see.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Who was the installer?
It was Marty Kennelly. He's from Shirley. He's been building systems a long time.
Mhm.
Over 50 years, I believe.
And on the approved plan, was it the tree was there and it was meant to be taken down?
Actually, I had other trees pinpointed on the plan, but that particular one, for some reason, did not make it to the plan. I don't know what happened, whether when I was doing my transit work, whether that one didn't get recorded, but it surprised me when I was asked to take a look at it first. I went out and Marty and his helper had staked it out. They didn't have it right, so I staked it out the way it was supposed to be. And the 4 stakes I had, one was very, very close to that tree. Where that tree was, there was a stone wall that had a little, not a bend in it, but a little cutout where the wall went in about 3 feet and then over and back. And where I staked it, it would have been extremely close to that, but I figured it would work. Well, when they built the system, evidently it didn't go in as my stakes went. It did get moved.
I see.
And that's something I didn't realize till I went to do the as-built. And we looked at that, and where that tree is, it sits up higher on a knoll. Jim was a little bit concerned with roots, and we talked about even putting a small barrier there also, just to keep any roots from getting into the system. So we sort of talked about all these different ways to make it work. To take a real thin area and get this to fit.
Get to fit.
All right, does, any other questions or comments before we get to abutters, gentlemen? Okay, can somebody let Darian into the discussion?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I'm just here mostly as an abutter observer, and I've transmitted my concerns to Mr. Smith, and you know, for me, it really has to do with just making sure that my property is protected from any kind of effluent or runoff and that type of things. And also, the stone wall that is, across the property line between mine and this particular property, should remain intact. Those are my primary concerns. I have a pond which I swim in, and there's a stream down the way, and I just want to be sure that, we're making sure that there's not extra nutrients flowing in that direction that wouldn't otherwise have been.
Right. All right, thoughts from the board? Or any other abutters? Anybody else with their hands raised? Thanks, Darian.
Nobody else has their hand raised.
So I don't know about you guys, but I have a little bit of a problem with this proceeding before it's been approved, and with the changes that the installer made to the design. So I think, sacrificing the tree for a better fit on the lot and not granting the variance and changing the system is something that we should think about.
I agree.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
So, can I can't make a motion to not accept the variance? Is that somebody else? Or do we just not accept it, Janet? And ask them to rework the.
Jim, I need a little guidance.
No, that's okay. I mean, they're requesting a variance to your regulation. You can certainly deny it.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general, denials need to be in writing. So after the meeting, you'd put together denial and what it was that the board felt needed to happen instead of granting the variance. So that's certainly within your right to do.
Okay. Do we take a vote on it or?
Yep.
Okay. So is there somebody that wants to make a motion to not accept the variance? And for,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to not accept the variance requested and to encourage the applicant to return with a quote, an improved alternative.
Right. I second.
all right, we'll go, Roll call vote, alphabetical order, Kevin Baker,
Evan Baker, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Peter Barone, yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Selden, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. All right, so Doug, if you can rework that, sorry about that, but that sets a precedent too for other systems and also your installer too, so.
Okay, we'll get the tree down and move it to where the original one was and
Mhm.
make it right.
Make it right, yeah.
I appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, running a little bit behind. The next hearing is on 307 Tehadawon, variance request from Civil Solutions. Kirk is here, and I know he knows how to share his screen.
Okay. Yes,
Sorry, my computer cut out. This is Kirk.
Hi, Kirk.
Did you just introduce 307
You did,
Tehadawon?
yep.
I'm Kirk Fitzpatrick with Civil Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of the Mannings for their property at 307 Tehadawon Road. And why don't I put the plan up for you?
feel bad. Okay.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble here. There we go. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So basically what we have proposed before you is a proposed upgrade design for the existing 3-bedroom dwelling. The existing system is composed of a 1,000-gallon septic tank in the front yard right in front of the steps here. And that feeds 2 leaching pits, one where this circle is here and another one adjacent to the lot line on the right, towards the right side of the property. So we went out and conducted testing in the front yard in front of the old leach pits. Let me scan over to the test results. We did 2 test holes. We had 36 inches of fill in the first one and then some old subsoil, and it changed to a sandy loam underneath with a water table at 54 inches. Second test hole was very similar. We had 2.5 feet of fill, the old subsoil, and then again to a sandy loam with a water table at 54 inches. We ran a percolation rate of and it ran at 3 minutes an inch, which we talked with Jim and did not feel that was very indicative of the site and the surrounding area. So we're actually designing this based on a percolation rate of 20 minutes an inch. Just based on our knowledge of the area and Jim's expertise, and because there's some land behind it that's been tested extensively, and it's not 3 minutes an inch soil. That's what it comes down to. Basically, what we're proposing is to come out to a new 1,500-gallon two-compartment septic tank. That's going to feed a 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and that's going to pump the liquid up to a leach and field composed of the Presby and Barrow septic that's going to be 32 feet long and 13.5 feet wide. Basically, because of the limited area and because there is a little bit of a water table here, we're proposing to change the grade just slightly. It's going to come up to elevation 96 by about 1/2 foot on the high side, and just basically this corner down in the front, and then 94 catches the grade basically right at the corner of the system. The front of the lot down to the Tehadawon Road is extremely steep, so we can't meet minimum breakout grading requirements. So we're proposing the use of a polyliner across the front, which is this dashed line along the 5-foot clearing along the front of the system. With that being said, I'd like to read the variances being requested. Approval is sought from Littleton Board of Health regulation to allow for a reduction in the groundwater offset from 4 feet to 2 feet with the use of the Presby and Barrow septic leaching system. A variance is hereby requested from Littleton Board of Health Regulation 27 to allow fill to meet minimum breakout grading requirements within 10 feet of the property line. And it's really across, just a little bit across the front here, and maybe right on the corner here. And then just in this, it's only changing about 6 inches in this area here where the hand is hovering. Approval is sought from Littleton Board of Health regulations to allow for the use of a polyline to meet minimum breakout grading requirements. And approval is sought under 310 CMR 15.4051G to reduce the requisite offset from a water line to a septic tank and pump chamber from 10 feet to 6 feet. So the water gate is right over here on the edge of the driveway. There's an old sketch that shows it coming into the left front corner of the house, but that's garage space, and the other all the utility room is in this general area here. The water department doesn't have any further records on the location of the water line. So to be conservative, we're showing it coming in straight, and that's what triggers the request for the reduction from 10 feet to 6 feet. In actuality, it may sweep out, but we're trying to be conservative and request a variance rather than find out afterwards. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Or any members have any questions for Kirk regarding 307 Tadawon?
So he wants to go 2 feet from 4 feet, right?
Correct. If we went with a full 4-foot offset, this system would require a retaining wall down the side lot line and all the way across the front, because you couldn't grade it out. The backyard, I just figured I'd mention, because if you went to pan out, it looks like there's a lot of room. The backyard it climbs 10 feet from the back of the house to the rear lot line. So if you tried to site something in the rear yard and had to change the grade at all, it's just going to direct more water to the back of the house. So this is the best place to put the system.
I don't have any problem, but let's see what anybody else has any question.
Kirk, is the barrier going to be on the Tadawon Road side and the right border?
It's primarily along the Tadawon Road side, and it just wraps around the corners. And basically it stops once it meets the face of the system.
Okay.
I can zoom in there and show you where. So where the hand is hovering now will be the end of the barrier. So it's not required to wrap all the way around the sides, just along basically the both front corners and along the front.
Mike, Kevin, or Dan, any questions at all? Any abutters? Anybody with their hands raised in the audience? Oh, wait, actually, let's ask Jim first. Jim's comments first, and then we'll ask about abutters.
Sure. So as Kevin mentioned, it's a really tight lot, and it does really go very steeply up in the back. And as you start to climb, I think the water table climbs too. So to Kurt's point, that the system would end up being up much further out of the ground and require grading that would actually cause a problem for the back of the house. There was, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's Kirk, there's a drain already around the backside of that house, probably when it was installed, probably for that reason. The barrier shouldn't really affect anybody because it's going right at the edge of the property line, but it will help make sure that fill doesn't cross the lot line. Given what they have to work with there, and given that we want to try to get the system out of the water table, I think it's a good fit for the site.
Great. Janet, anybody with hands raised at all?
No hands are raised.
We entertain a motion to accept the 4 variances. Anybody?
I'll make a motion that we grant the variances 1, 2, 3, and 4, and from their request letter as printed.
A second.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call for approval. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino Carloni,
Gino Ferroni, yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Selden, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. All right, thanks, Kirk. And next one, 47 Goldsmith Street, Civil Solutions.
I'll try to bring this plan up a little more quickly this time. No, that's not. All right, again, I'm Kirk Fitzpatrick with Civil Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of Bob Panic for his property at 47 Goldsmith Street. And again, this is a proposed upgrade for the existing 3-bedroom dwelling. The existing system failed a Title V inspection. It currently has a small tank located behind the house, and that feeds a dry well off to the side here. And then there's also a secondary, I think it's a leaching field towards the back left of the house. We went out and conducted 3 test holes. We started off on the side here. We had a water table at 20 inches, went off to the other side and had a water table at 24 inches. We tried to do a little bit of a triangulation and actually hit that system and were stopped because of the effluent. It couldn't go any further. So if you look at the test holes, we had 20 inches of fill and topsoil, and then some old subsoil and changed to a sandy loam. Second test was very similar, 20 inches of fill and topsoil, an old buried B layer, and then the sandy loam material below it. We had a water table, as I mentioned, at 20 inches. We had observed water table at 40 inches and 48 inches respectively, so we were not able to run the percolation test. So we took a soil sample, sent it off to the lab, and it came back as a sandy loam, which is a Class II soil. So this system is designed based on a percolation rate equivalent of 30 minutes per inch. So what we're proposing to do is come out to a new 1,500-gallon 2-compartment septic tank. It's going to feed a 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and that's going to pump the liquid up to a system composed of the geomat that's going to be 38 feet long by 16 feet wide. We actually looked at the Presby as an alternative here also, but the geomat fit the property well. There's kind of a flat spot here, and it really it cuts down on the grading requirements. With any other type of a system, you'd have fill going right to the lot line on this side and then right to the fenced line in the back. Instead, we're asking for 2 variances. We're asking for approval from Littleton Board of Health to allow for a reduction in the groundwater offset from 4 feet to 2 feet with the use of the geomat leaching system. And again, the geomat's approved as an alternative system to reduce the groundwater offset with approval from the board. This allows us to make it fit the property, keep the size of the bump down, and limit the grading that's required. And then we're asking for approval from 310 CMR 15.451I to allow the use of a sieve analysis where a percolation rate cannot be performed due to groundwater interference. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions from the board for this?
Please.
Jim, do you have your comments, please?
As Kurt says, the site's small, high water table, high perk rate. The geomat seems to work as a solution for these sites to try to minimize the amount of fill that's going off onto the lot lines, which is particularly concerning in this neighborhood where the houses all seem to terrace down to the next house. So we're really trying to, we not only need to address the public health issue, but we're trying to make it surface drainage problem for the lots abutting. Right now, there's a leaching area that's probably in the water table based on our soil testing, plus a dry well that's definitely in the water table. So this system is going to be up out of the water table a couple of feet. So again, it improves it from a public health standpoint. We'll have the tank and with the 2 compartments, you'll get some decent filtering on that before it heads out to the leaching area. And then a leaching area that's in a much better situation than what's currently there. So again, in an area of town water, the 2 feet offset makes sense to try to get the system to fit without impacting abutters.
Great. I know, is it Mr. Panic is here tonight too? Were there any abutters, anybody with their hands raised at all?
No hands are raised.
All right. So anybody, can I entertain a motion from a board member to approve the 2 variances that Civil Solutions is requesting?
Make a motion to approve the plan as presented and the 2 variances requested.
A second.
Great. Roll call, Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
and Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
and Lisa Flanagan, yes. All set on that one then. And we move on to 32 Lake Warren, variance request from Civil Solutions also.
Great. Again, I'm Kirk Fitzpatrick with Civil Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of the Sussman Trust for the property at 32 Lake Warren Drive. This is a proposed upgrade for the existing two-bedroom dwelling. This is actually a two-bedroom dwelling, and it already has a two-bedroom deed restriction. Currently, there's a small tank in the front yard, and that feeds a leaching area that runs down the side of the house. At the back of the property is Mill Pond. This is the edge of the pond. The 100-foot offset comes all the way to the front lot line, and the 50-foot offset pretty much bisects the house. So we went out, currently there's a driveway that goes to a garage on the left side of the house, and then there's also a circular driveway that cuts across the front yard and connects back into Lake Warren Drive. So we conducted 2 test holes in the front yard, test holes 1 and 2. We had topsoil, subsoil, and then it changed to a fine sand and then down to a coarse sandy gravel with a water table at 84 inches in the first test hole. We should observe water at 96 inches. The second test hole had 72 inches of fill over the coarse sand, and that had a seasonal high water table at 90 inches. And the percolation rate for this property is 2 minutes an inch. So what we're proposing to do is actually eliminate the circular corner of the driveway. They'll saw cut the driveway along the straight edge leading to the garage, and then also along Lake Warren Drive, and that area will be returned to lawn once the system's installed. So what we're proposing is to come out to a new 1,500-gallon 2-compartment septic tank, and then that's going to feed a stone bed that's 8 feet wide by 38 feet long. We're asking for a reduction in the groundwater offset from 5 feet to 4 feet under local upgrade approval. We did take a look at some of the alternative technologies, but the stone bed actually fits this property better than any alternative system, because the alternative system has to have a minimum square footage, no matter what the bedroom count is, of 400 square feet. So where this system is 304 square feet, being 8 by 38, it allows us to fit it in with the least amount of variances. So as I mentioned, we're asking for a reduction in the groundwater offset, and then we're asking for a reduction in the street line offset from 10 feet to 6 feet. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
So tell me, Kirk, what is this, just a regular standard replacement? Not, you said no new technology.
No, this is a 1,500-gallon 2-compartment tank, and then a stone leaching field. So it's going to have 6 inches of 3/4 inch and a half stone, and then 4-inch pipes over the top of it. It's a conventional system with a request for a groundwater reduction. And we're requesting the reduction because it allows it to make it by gravity. If we went with the 5-foot offset, you'd have to put in a pump after the septic tank.
Any problem?
All right, any questions from the board?
Nope. Looks pretty good to me.
Haven't had a standard conventional system in a long time.
Yeah.
We do look at them first because they're generally more cost effective, although the price of stone has gone way up. But it definitely, I think it works the best in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Jim, do you have any comments?
Sure. So you can see kind of in on Kurt's plan on the right-hand side of the house, the old system kind of heads back towards the pond there, and they've kind of sketched in there. So one of the good things about the design is it pulls the system further away from the wetlands. It's probably even a little bit higher than that leach bed is above the water table. So both really good things when we're trying to replace the system and trying to keep an eye to the public health. So again, I think it's a reasonable replacement here to the house. It's a small house, a small system seems to work in this situation.
I see no problem.
Anybody with their hands raised? Any butters?
Nope, nobody has their hand raised.
All right. We entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
To approve the
Approve.
2 variances.
Variance, yes.
Go by roll call. Kevin Baker, I think you said yes.
Kevin Bigger, yes. Sorry.
Gino Fredoloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. All right,
Great. Thank you very much.
that's it for you tonight, Kurt?
That is it for me.
All right.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Too. Thank you. All right, so what time we have? Ooh, we're really behind. 7:20, we have a public hearing about mental illness services that are available for town. Joe, Tim, and Alicia. I see Nicole is on as an attendee.
7:20.
Yes, and I did not hear from, Alicia told me either she or Tim would be here. And Joe didn't say he wasn't going to be here, so.
All right. I got it. Well, Nicole is here. I did see all the slides that we got from Lynn. So, Nicole, hi.
Hello.
If you can get us started, maybe the other people will show up. Or
Sure. So
maybe you know of them, you know, if they're going to be showing up at all.
I don't know. I think so, but I'm not positive. I just have some information as far as Elder and Human Services go. So I'm the Assistant Director at Elder and Human Services, which encompasses the Council on Aging. So we have various mental health resources. I was able to pull some numbers, and it looks like last year in 2020, we had 36 unduplicated residents reach out for mental health assistance. So far this year, we've had 15. Utilize the interface website, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And the numbers for last year were 22 residents, and for this year so far has been 50. So we're more so far this year than we were for the entire last year. Elder and Human Services, we have several support groups for anxiety. We have support group for living alone. Myself and our outreach coordinator, Amy, have both been trained on QPR, which is a suicide prevention program that we're planning to offer trainings in the fall to town employees and to the community. Elder and Human Services also houses the Coalition Against Addiction, which offers resources and support for mental health issues as well as substance abuse issues. We have all of our information on the webpage, crisis hotline. That's also accessible through the Littleton Police Department's webpage. So, you know, just trying to get the information out there has been difficult. A lot of people don't know that we're able to provide services to all residents. So that's been a roadblock for us. But so just getting the word out there that any resident of Littleton can come to us for, you know, these resources for mental health concerns is important.
Right. So why do you think that, what's the roadblock? Do you think, we've talked about the name, your name, department's name, Elder.
I know. And, you know, people assume that we're just the Council on Aging. And so if, you know, younger people are hesitant to come to us. We do have quite a few younger, under 60 clients. But reaching those other people has been difficult. With the Coalition Against Addiction, we're going to be doing some partnering with Park and Rec to try to reach that younger demographic. You know, just really difficult for people to understand. We've changed. So the phone, we say Elder and Human Services, but most of the people who call us are seniors. And so when we answer the phone, Elder and Human Services, they think they have the wrong number. So it's kind of a balance of trying to, you know, be upfront with the services that we offer while still, you know, catering to that over 60 crowd. So we're working with the schools and Park and Rec, you know, to let people know that we're here. We have support. We provided a lot of support for under 60 over the past year. We have, financial resources for all residents, and it's there. It's just getting people to come to us.
All right. This is an ongoing conversation too with us. So, does anybody have any ideas or want to comment on anything that Nicole said? Speaking about. Go ahead, Mike.
It's obvious question. Suppose there was a Department of Human Services, period. Okay, just envision, okay. Do you think that you could still, this is as a background, I'm making the assumption from your description that the, shall we say, the use and basically, yes, the use of human services in the area that you're talking about is primarily people will have to come to you. You have to make sure, yeah, in other words, it's not like a pandemic, okay, where everybody is sharing alike. There's definitely self-selection. So my question is, if you could envision a separate name called the Department of Human Services, has there been discussion about, would that help being able to, as it were, make more effective the outreach to each and every population you feel, your group feels, should be reached out to? In other words, it's,
it's a good question. We've kind of gone back and forth about it for so long. It seems, whenever a new person, someone who's new to town, comes to the senior center and, we say the name, it's kind of, having to explain it. I don't know. There are quite a few towns surrounding us that have they have a council on aging, and then they have a separate department for the under 60. And, I'm not sure what their numbers are like. I'm not sure how much of a difference it would make. We've kind of gone back and forth about it, like I said, for so long, trying to figure out what is it that's causing the confusion and what should we call ourselves. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation.
and
I'm not sure what the answer is.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking this is the other piece which your group has an opportunity to observe, even if it's sometime obscured, is to what extent is what we'll call the confusion or the lack of clear identity, I'll call it, and the fact that there's a fair amount of ageism also around that also affects this. I mean, there's an enormous thing going on here. To what extent do you think this depresses? Do you feel we're missing 30% of what's out there, 50% of what's out? I mean, I'm aware that you probably can't give hard numbers on it, but you must have a feel for it from, being in the field.
Yeah, I would say probably close to 50%.
How much? I'm sorry, you got muffled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would say it's probably close to 50%, if I had to guess, that we're missing. The younger people we never get. People in school, in the high schools, we never get people that young. I would say it's probably close to 50% of, the younger under 60 that probably don't even know that we exist, to be perfectly honest. They don't know who we are or what we can do. That's one of the goals with the Coalition Against Addiction, is to kind of reach those younger people. Obviously, addiction affects people regardless of their age. But it's kind of an in to get into the schools, to do kind of, trainings and, with what used to be DARE, that's kind of could be our in to get in there and let people know what else is available, because we never get those people. So I would say probably 50%, if I had to guess. That's
for my conversations with other towns that are sort of struggling with the same thing. You're almost the same numbers. It's amazing. I mean,
it's hard to reach people, and, people are busy in their lives and going about their school and their work and their family. And, you know, it's hard to reach those people and let them know, you know, I don't know how many people are like under 60 are tuning into cable. And, you know, we're putting out slides and, you know, we have these shows on cable, and it's hard to know the demographic that you're reaching that way.
Kevin, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
I was just wondering if you had a Facebook page. Set
We
up.
do.
Yeah.
We do. So that's pretty new. I joined Elder and Human Services. It's coming up on 4 years ago. And I run the Facebook page, and the Coalition Against Addiction also has a Facebook page. And we tried to get, you know, like the library and Park and Rec to kind of share our things, you know, because they get a lot more traffic than us. Park and Rec is so popular, and so is the library. So we try to, you know, get the word out that way. It's getting people to see our page. You know, the people who already like it and see it are, you know, engaging in our posts, but to get those other people is, you know, tricky. But we do, and you know, we're very active on Facebook, both the department and the coalition. So we have done that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best way to go after the target demographic that you're.
Yeah, I know. If enough people will share our things, you know, if someone is following the Park and Rec and they see something, then that's a great way for people to find our page and find our department.
Well, let us know how we can help get the word out.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe we could use some help from some of the Olympic athletes, both one of the current ones and one of the past ones, both of whom have come out quite strongly in understanding for young people how important, shall we say, mental rigor and health
Yes.
is important.
Yes, so important.
Yeah, it just
it's part of your overall. It can affect you. It affects everything. Your physical health. It's important. Yeah.
Great. All right.
We had sort of a plan for the coalition against all delayed because of COVID. So we're hoping that over the next year we can kind of really bump that up and get people to come to us.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there are other, I'm just wondering if there's some other, shall we say, areas of, I'll use the word mental health, okay, or healthy, that could be even, shall we say, a more attract a different kind of demographic than addiction. I'm not saying to exclude it. I'm just really saying, I'm wondering if there's another approach to complement it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there is, you know, before we even had the coalition, you know, the department has these mental health resources. The coalition is just kind of another avenue to try to reach those people, but I'm sure there's other ways, you know, and we've been talking, our outreach coordinator goes to, you know, quarterly outreach meetings with other senior centers all around. So she's been, you know, trying to pick their brains and see how they're reaching people. It's, you know, it's a roadblock that a lot of people are facing, but hopefully we can find a way.
Younger people apparently are reluctant to show up.
Yeah, just because, you know, they think of it as a senior center and they're, you know, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and, you know, don't feel like they belong. And
they don't want to belong.
But they do.
Typically, the younger people, you know, other than maybe high
but
school.
They do, and we would love to see them.
So are we saying that typically younger people are, you know, their parents are caring for them, and so if they have mental health issues, the parents wouldn't necessarily go to Elder and Human Services. They would probably go to a physician first before they. So I think it's maybe the older teenagers that would, you know, use your resources more than other younger kids. So
right.
Yeah, and you wanted to say something?
I was going to say something, yes.
What? Dan had his hand up, Gino.
All right. Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much for being here tonight. We appreciate your time.
Hi. Sure.
So it's always a challenge that, most of your population that you serve tends to be the senior piece, and we all do it. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the language even you're using going, as you're looking for ways of talking about improving your outreach to the community, you had said that your director had talked to a number of other senior centers in other towns about how they do it. So as we're talking about trying to do outreach, it sounds like your elder outreach is actually pretty effective. It is the rest of our community population is more of a challenge. But even in your language as you're speaking, you're talking about talking to other senior centers looking for their ideas. It's really hard because that's such a big piece of what your practice is. I got laughed at probably a month or two ago when I suggested, Facebook is great. Well, cable TV and LCTV is awesome and we love them, but their demographic is a little bit skewed to one end of the curve. Facebook is somewhere that middle part of the curve skewing to the right. And as we're looking for the left end of that curve, the younger group, even Facebook is not there. And we're looking at things like YouTube. And I got laughed at for mentioning TikTok, but that's where a lot of that population is. And it's a great way of reaching out. Some other things, we obviously want to be proactive and preventative. And that means getting to folks before they need services or as early in their need as possible. But certainly when I'm not here in the Board of Health and I'm not playing nurse in the hospital, I'm a firefighter and paramedic here in town. And that certainly I have been here for 5 years in the department and I've never really gotten a good sense as a clinician caring for patients in our community of what resources are available from Elder and Human Services. So if I see a 30-something that I'm caring for, that I never think of Elder and Human Services as one of those resources where I can provide them a link or a contact. We're helping you in this situation, this crisis right now, but here's some other things that you can think about the resources that are available here in our community. And my guess is my peers, both on the police side and the fire side, would also have that same piece. It would never come to our minds going, hey, you may want to talk to Elder and Human Services. They've got a great program, or they've got some great resources, or they've got some great tools that may be able to, make your day a little bit easier, make your experience here in community better. Those kind of pieces that, so you've got you're providing a lot of services. How do you get them out there? And really look at, it's a little bit late in the curve, but I'd rather have it late in the curve or late in these, patient's experience or a community member's experience than never in their experience.
Right. No, that's a great idea. I think that, that's really important and probably a piece that we kind of assume is already there, but I think educating, police and fire to let them know what we have and give them information that they can give to the people that they see on their way. That's so important. I think that's a great idea. I think that's definitely a piece that in our head we just assumed was there, but you're right. I mean, we should be doing that.
Like a pamphlet or even just like a little business card, calling card kind of thing to say here to one of your clients.
Yeah, and we do. We have a crisis mental health cardstock pamphlet that we could definitely bring over. That's a great idea. Thank you.
And no just to add one other excuse me, the chief of police here in you probably know this, chief of police here in Littleton has background in training that overlaps. I'm not saying he's in the same category, but he certainly knows what you're talking about when it comes to the demographic of interest.
Right. And Chief Pinard and I work together very closely on the coalition. So I'll definitely reach out to him to give him some of that literature that we can be handing out.
He handles more than just addiction.
Right. More than addiction.
A lot more than addiction, yes.
Gino, did you have something? Gino, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think she's doing a very good job.
Absolutely.
Evidently, people will understand what she's trying to do and she's trying to help them. My suggestion is, I don't know what Dan says, but nevertheless, if you like to be interviewing TV, a lot of people will be able to watch it, especially a local for Littleton. You're doing only for Littleton or you do for other town too? You're trying to help everybody else or just in Littleton? That's my question. And if you like to go in TV, I can get you on local TV or not local TV if you do for different town too. What you have to say is a lot of
that would be great.
You will be able to help a lot of people.
Okay.
Right,
So-
yes, that's our goal.
All right.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
call, I'm gonna call Jim, see if I can get in touch with you and then we can talk.
All right,
Great, thank you so much, Gino.
all
Well,
right. And we'll just keep this conversation going. All right. Anybody else wanted to say anything to Nicole? Okay, all right, thanks. Oh, yes, hi, are you waving goodbye or you have a
Saying
hand?
goodbye. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
All
for
right.
your work.
thanks very much, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
We'll keep you guys on our
Thank
agenda,
you
okay?
so much.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
So next is a hearing on 12 Shattuck Road, the request of the property owner under the housing code. So Jim, maybe you can give us an idea of what's going on here?
Absolutely. This is probably the first time that I've been in a meeting or had to discuss this with your board at a meeting. And so just a little bit of background before we start.
Sure.
Whenever a Board of Health issues an order under one of the state sanitary or environmental codes, the code has a section in there that allows the person who the order is issued on to request a hearing before the approving authority, the Board of Health in this case here. And again, it's their right to a hearing to, maybe they feel that the inspector did something wrong. Maybe they feel that they've been cited incorrectly. In some cases, if you read the code, you could ask for an order if the Board of Health doesn't come out. The agent won't come out and do your inspection. So it's a means of regress, redress rather. I'm sorry, for the person the order has been issued on. In this case here, the set of regulations is a housing code. And I was asked to come out and do a housing inspection at the property at 12 Shattuck, the first floor. Did the inspection for the tenants, wrote up the order letter, served the order letter on the landlord. And in that order, I think Janet probably sent that order around. In addition to the order and all the legal references, there's also a list of the violations that were noted on the day of the inspection. So in this case here, the property owner requested under their right for a hearing, requested a hearing with the board. The idea is the housing code is considered a minimum standard. These are the minimum things for human habitation in a structure. So when you're thinking about the request that the property owner has, that's kind of how we're thinking about it. If you're going to modify something, if you were going to sustain something, think of it in the case that these are minimum standards for human health and safety. One of the things the board can, so at the conclusion of the hearing, once the property owners made their presentation, the board can take 1 of 3 actions. You can sustain the order saying, we believe the violations that are there and the timeframes that are required to fix them are appropriate. We'll sustain the order. You can modify the order. And in this case here, you can't allow them to do something less than the code. But what you could do is sometimes people need additional time to make repairs. If you're ordering any kind of building supplies these days, particularly anything significant, it may take time to get it. Contractors are difficult to get. So you may, and certainly within your right to grant extensions of timeframes. Or you can withdraw the order. So if you felt the order was done in error or whatever the case may be, there's something wrong with the order, the board could actually withdraw the order. And so if you sustain the order, all the original corrections need to be made in the original timeframes. If you modify the order, what happens is the modifications then become the new order, if you will, for the property owner to have to follow. And if you withdraw the order, obviously none of the things need to be done. Again, we do generally 2 types of housings at the health department. One is what I call complaint housing. Somebody believes they have an issue in the unit. They call the Board of Health. We're required to go out and do an inspection of the unit for them. If there are violations, we issue the orders. The second type of housing inspection is those housings that are done primarily pre-occupancy. So your housing authority will often ask us to go out and take a look at a unit before they have somebody move into that unit. And so we do those kinds of housing inspections also. The effect is the same. So if I do a pre-occupancy and there are issues, they got to correct them. Or if in the case of a complaint housing, if there are violations, they need to fix them. The housing code looks at the violations. There are those violations that need to be fixed within 24 hours. And generally speaking, the balance of the violations or the bulk of the violations that we find generally can be correct, or they have a time frame of 30 days to be corrected. I hope that provides enough background for you for this. I don't know if anyone has any questions as we're going into it.
I'm sorry, I have a question for Jim.
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
Just for clarification, does in this proceeding do the what we call tenants or whoever, I don't want to get do the source of the complaint or the source of the request for the inspection and analysis, are they also present for this hearing?
It's a public hearing, so they have the right to be involved.
Okay, and they're so informed, is that correct?
During the inspection, I don't know that I told them they were going to be a hearing. What I explained to tenants when I do inspections is that the property owner has a right to, because we generally explain timeframes. And I said, these are the timeframes generally in the code. The property owner can request hearing times if they feel that they can't meet something. Again, it's usually materials or contractors that sometimes take a longer time than the standard time frame in the code allows.
Is this unit occupied?
It is. Well, I believe it is to today still.
I'm sorry?
I believe it is.
Yes. I'm one of the property owners. Can I address that question?
No.
One second. Let's. Does any members of the board have any other questions for Jim?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. So, sure. Is it Rena Schindler?
Yes, my legal name is Jeffrey.
Okay. State your name and address, please.
Jeffrey Schindler. My address is 139R Granite Street, Rockport, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is concerning the property at 12 Shattuck Street, apartment number 1. And there was a question as to whether the unit is occupied. Yes, it is currently occupied. The tenants have been given a notice to quit because back in June, we realized that there were some structural issues that had to be addressed and could not be addressed with the tenants in the unit. So we gave them 60 days to vacate the unit.
Is that legal now with
So they are on a month-to-month lease. So we gave them more than the legally required amount of time.
But even right now during the pandemic where evictions and foreclosures are put on hold?
So currently Massachusetts has lifted its eviction hold in certain cases.
They are not currently being evicted, but we've just told them that the lease is going to end.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you for allowing us to come to the hearing. Will I be able to share some materials, a screen share?
What kind? I don't know what you're going to be showing. Just photos or?
So I have the list of violations, which I thought might be easier to just show you all and show how we've addressed it.
We've already had that. The
Okay.
violation list. We already have that.
Okay. So I had highlighted the list to show what we've already addressed or what is currently in the process of being addressed within the timeline of 30 days. But there are a number of items that we would request a modification and give us more than 30 days to address. So I'll just highlight the items that we would like more time to address and that will not be, that we're having difficulty addressing within the 30 days. That is, if you're looking at the violation list under code number 410.500, floor threshold, excessive give, wet, Shattuck Street side door. So this is part of the general structural issues that I mentioned, where we would need to, because this area is under a crawl space, we can't address it from below. We believe the floor joists have weakened and need to be replaced or strengthened. And we can only do that by removing the floor and coming in from above. And we'd also need to open some of the walls to address this whole situation. And obviously we can't do that with the tenants in the unit. So that we were already actually planning to address with a timeline of when the tenants have left later, hopefully later in the fall. Same issue, bedroom floor has excessive give at the radiator. This is all related to the same issue of the floor joists, or probably, but as Ed Mellon told us, we would need to remove the floor in order to figure this out better. Another issue with the fascia boards behind the gutter are rotted. That is something that will be addressed once all these other, when all these other issues are addressed. We have already contracted Henry Whitcomb to do all of this work, and he will address that when he does the other work with the bedroom floor and the threshold on the Shattuck Street side. Everything else will be addressed within the 30 days. But then we had 2 further questions about the floor in the bathroom and part of the kitchen floor are not non-absorbent. And for that, we have pictures of the floors and a question about for clarification on what we need to do there to make that compliant. And another question we have is about there being no screen door on the Shattuck Street door. And again, we have some pictures of that door and questions about whether it might actually already be compliant because that door opens into sort of like a sort of small hall, non-livable. It's actually used in as emergency egress by the tenants. So we would ask that maybe we don't need to install a screen door on that door since it's not really opened for airflow in the living area.
Well, I have a couple of pictures. This is Karen Amy Rose. So could I do a quick screen share and just go through the 3 questions that we brought?
Well, what are your 3 questions?
So Rena just went through them, but
the 3 items.
Yeah. So okay, you can tell me if you want pictures. So the item under 410-504, the floor in the bathroom and part of the kitchen floor are non-absorbent. So in the bathroom, it's a king pine floor. Is the wood floor okay as long as it's sealed? And we were hoping you could kind of recommend how you want us to seal it. I realize this is, now that I'm here, this is so much more basic than the other conversations you've been having. But we were just hoping for some direction about how to remedy that item.
Jim, do you have?
So I guess I would defer them to their contractor. The code wants in bathrooms and in kitchens, for obvious reasons, water, food, soap, whatever, they want the floors non-absorbent, smooth and easily cleanable. So that's kind of the standard for floors in those areas. So in the kitchen area, unfortunately, it's one of these where the kitchen is, where the refrigerator kind of bumps out. There's a little more of the kitchen if you were kind of looking at it as a kitchen area. So part of the floor, the kitchen floor at the sink and the stove is, I believe it's like a vinyl flooring.
Yeah, the kitchen's linoleum, right? Yeah, and the fridge is just right outside in the hall.
So whether it's sealing that floor, I'm not sure how you make a old pine board floor meet the code standard for smooth, easily cleanable, and non-absorbent. Because there's always gaps in the boards. That's why I defer to their contractor to see if there's, I don't know what's out there for products and whatnot. An old pine floor is not like a hardwood floor in a new house where everything's tight and urethane, and so you have that ability. Yeah. And it certainly has the character of the house. I just don't know how it meets the code in those areas.
Okay, 80 coats. All right, and about the refrigerator, I was wondering if the issue is sort of with the refrigerator, like is it something we should put an appliance tray under, or is the issue that we need to sort of extend the footprint of the kitchen to include the refrigerator?
And that would be my take, is extend it. And again, if you start to think about the refrigerator, if the stuff spills out of the fridge, they just want to make sure that the floor is not absorbed, easily cleanable, smooth.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question was about the hallway, as Rena mentioned. I do have a couple of pictures, but so the Shattuck Street door opens inward, it opens to the outside. There's 2 doors downstairs, the first floor. There's 1 door to the second floor apartment. So those doors are always all closed. That hall is purely egress. So I just wanted to double check if there's a compliance issue with ventilation, since it's not a used space, since the apartments keep it closed because it separates the apartments.
And unfortunately, the code is kind of just a minimum base code. So it doesn't say, geez, if the doors, if you have a door in this kind of situation, it wouldn't need to be screened. It talks about screening doors and windows.
Okay, and so it's just a screen that's required. It's not necessarily like a storm door. I'm just trying to figure out how to address that over the antique door that we have there.
So again, that's one of those things with a contractor. I know the King
Okay.
Street side door, you have a regular door, then a wooden screen door. So I think the regular wood door or the regular entry door is a little bit more substantial. So just having the wooden screen door complies with the code. We talked a little bit, or the violation list mentioned a little bit that inner door, the actually entry door, needs to be made weather tight. And the same, so whether you did something like that on the other side, whether you're trying to maintain some historical nature of it and want to put some other kind of door that would accommodate a screen, again, a question for the contractor.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, we are going to, weather strip and all that separately. So thank you. Thanks for the clarifications. I guess the only question we're remaining with is about time in that case. So as Rena mentioned, we had already contracted Henry would come in June to do the carpentry, but we're not going to be able to do, that's a big project. We don't actually fully know the scope of it yet till we open the floor and open the walls. So we're not going to be able to do the floor carpentry and the outside. We actually had contracted for a bigger project with some other fixes, removing the deck entirely. But first of all, Mr. Whitcomb's queue, he has us after 2 additions and a kitchen. So we're in his late fall schedule. So we have a timing request about those pieces.
Obviously,
Well,
everything else is being addressed within 30 days. Every other item on this list will be addressed within 30 days. And I guess I should mention that about the evidence of mouse droppings, we had tried to schedule an exterminator to come and put down bait in order to clear the mice from the area before closing up the entry points that Mr. Gareffi had mentioned in the inspection, but the tenants refused to allow the exterminator to put down bait. And when we attempted to ask the exterminator if there were any other solutions we could use, the exterminator refused to work with us anymore because the tenant had called and threatened legal action. So we are going. I actually spoke to a few other pest removal companies which deal with humane removal, but they said there's basically no way to ensure removal from a 1730s farmhouse without that poison bait. So I think so, and obviously sealing up the unit is just going to create other issues with the pests inside. So we're still working on that. We are going to seal up the 2 points that Mr. Gareffi noted in the inspection. Those are going to be happening within the 30 days, but that can't completely guarantee that there will never be any more mice in the unit without the ability to use poison. So I guess I should make this clear that our requests for modifications are time related in order to be able to schedule the excessive carpentry work throughout the place that is related to the floors that have excessive give, and then to figure out how to appropriately address the mouse issue, presumably when the tenant leaves, if we can put down poison then, etc. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I should mention the I forget what you call it, the papers we got start off that it shouldn't be occupied, and until these are resolved, and we 100% will not have it occupied until these are resolved. It's just going to take longer than 30 days, and some of it requires the tenants not being in. So it's just timing to complete. It's not that we're going to like put someone else in there or something crazy.
maybe I can just clarify for the board. In the housing order, it states that if the unit should become vacant, that it can't be reoccupied until the Board of Health is inspected and found that the violations have been corrected.
I have a quick question before any modification is made. The issues of safety with the windows, locks, doors, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and railings for the basement stairs. Those, I think, should probably be able to be done within the
Yes.
next 30 days, if not already, correct?
Yes, we have already replaced the smoke detectors. The railing will be corrected next week, along with the window locks. Yeah, so yes, we have, and we've addressed the safety issues
Okay.
primarily
And,
first.
And the burners on the stove, is this an electric or a gas?
So this is a gas stove.
Electric.
Sorry, an electric stove that was put in I think 1980. The problem with replacing it is that it has a downdraft with a vent. We had initially asked the tenants back in January if they would want us to replace it with a similar sized downdraft stove, which is quite difficult to find these days, but we did find there were 3 models, but there's a lot of backlog of this specific model, especially due to COVID and difficulty getting appliances in. So we will have to replace it with a cheaper standard stove model without the downdraft, which means we have to remove the downdraft motor and seal up the vent, which is, again, we are scheduling that to happen within the next 30 days.
Okay. I was just concerned whether or not it was gas or not, because that would be dangerous. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Anybody? Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry.
All right, Mike. I know you said that you had terminated the lease with the tenants. When will the unit be vacant?
Presumably September 1st. This is, I mean, assuming that the tenants indeed vacate the unit.
Okay. You said you've correct. Jim, have you gone back and re-inspected? So that 24-hour order for smoke detectors, carbon monoxide alarms, and rechecking the smoke detectors upstairs. Have you or fire prevention from the fire department gone in and verified that was corrected?
I have not. They called me the day they did it, and I figured I would wait to this hearing and then see what their schedule is going to be and follow up with them on that.
We do have receipts and pictures of the installation of the new smoke detectors, if you would like us to share.
No, I'm sorry about that. I just want to make sure that certainly from a life safety perspective, that is absolutely critical, and you still have people living in the house for 6 more weeks, give or take.
Yep.
Oh, definitely.
I don't have any other questions at the moment. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Mike, Kevin, or Gino, any questions for this
Yeah,
at all?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How long have you owned this particular the building and or the apartment being referred to?
We bought the house in February of 2013.
Okay.
And we lived there until 2018.
Okay. So many of the items in 410-500 have been either there or developing, perhaps even while you were in the unit. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, presumably they were developing while we were in the unit. At the time, it had passed an inspection when we bought the house. We didn't think that there was ongoing issues at the time.
So such things as the non-compliant handrails and issues with the bathroom and all the rest, that was,
So,
I mean, what I'm trying to get is that, trying to understand if many of these things have been in place for more than a year or two, this, shall we say, you've been in violation of these codes for quite a while.
I would say, I mean, some of the things, whenever the tenant paid their rent, I would ask them if there was anything they needed repaired or replaced. Things like the issues with the bathroom, I mean, they had never mentioned them to us. So the moment that we heard from the inspector that these were issues, we immediately scheduled them to be repaired.
Yeah, this tenant has lived there for 2.5 years, and we have made other repairs at their request. We just, you know, I'm not looking, there's a handrail to the basement. There's not a compliant handrail. You know, I'm not an expert in code precision, so we just didn't realize a lot of stuff.
Right, so Jim, you'll keep us posted on this?
Sure. So I guess what, I guess two things I guess should happen is a specific request for specific timeframes and a decision by the board whether those timeframes are acceptable. With and again, I'm not a structural person, so you know when you walk in that Shattuck Street door, I think what's happening to the floor, and again, just the uneducated eye of somebody who's not a contractor, I think water's getting in there, and that's probably partially what's causing the soft floor there. Does it seem like it's imminent to fall through? No, but where is it on the continuum? I don't know. So where it seems reasonable to, you know, given the scope of what might need to be done there to open the floor and maybe get into the wall, into the doorway to actually fix this, you know, another month plus, there should be some review of that by somebody who's a lot more intelligent about these matters than I, to kind of determine if some kind of temporary patch needs to be made so that it's safe. If you were going to grant an extension of time. Again, I think the extension of time is reasonable. It's just that that floor and the floor with the radiator were soft underfoot. So.
And you have spoken with Commissioner Mullen?
Yeah, we have had him out. We just saw him on Friday. He was out to look at the place, and he reassured us that from his standpoint, there was no safety issues.
Other than what you said, the railing is going to be complete?
So the railing on the deck is actually scheduled to be removed within the next few weeks. And we right now have caution tape on it to prevent people from...
It's on the stairs to the basement.
Oh, yes, that will be corrected next week. There is a railing on the stairs. It's just a bit too tall. Like if you're going down, your arm goes up.
So you said the tenants are leaving September? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And what's the date?
September 1st.
So that's 30 days from now. Do we modify it with the time limit for? How do we do this, Jim?
So again, I guess I would press them, you know, them for a schedule. I mean, for the specific things in a schedule, which I think they can be done. You know, having a list from them, then the board can say, all right, the following things, we need to do these things here. With the floor, I can certainly check with Mr. Mullen to see what his thoughts are on that. He was out to take a look at the floors for you, or was he out to take a look and see what you need to do for the railing in the basement, or?
Well, we were continuously concerned that some of the structural issues involved the foundation. So he did an external look at the foundation to confirm that and told us the foundation was not an issue, and that if there is an issue, it's the floor joists over that crawl space. So really, and like I said, there's actually nowhere to fall into. That crawl space is only a few inches tall, which is one of the reasons why we have to have them leave before we can take up the floor, because there's no way to support the joists from underneath. So the floor is not actually going to collapse to anywhere because there's nowhere for it to go. It's just sagging.
Has Mr. Whitcomb, shall we say, examined or taken into account the significance of the floor joist when he came in and assessed the job?
We don't have a quote. He just said he could help us with this project in late fall. We don't have a quote because It can't be assessed, it can't be scoped until he opens the floor and opens the wall, which is, I was told that by Joshua Powell, a master craftsman, and a couple other people have said that. Part of why we had a lot of activity in June, because we were speaking to different structural engineers. I had ServPro in 2 weeks ago. We spoke to several contractors, and no one gave quite the same solution. The structural engineer told us we need to lift up the house and build a basement, and he's the structural engineer. You know, other contractors had other ideas. So I think it's a really good point that. So our goal, of course, is to make it so, like you said, Jim, there seems to be water coming in. We need to, make the house watertight and ship shape. We need to do whatever it takes to do that. If someone wants to tell us to like put a couple planks across the problem areas or what it is, that's a short-term fix that we can do in 30 days. We're happy to do that. It's just that these problems won't be fully long-term solved until we do this other project that is very unscoped. It's just agreed to in the queue.
So in the email that you had sent, kind of outlining the process and contractors, you had a handyman that was going to do some of the work for you. Is that something that he could come in and provide you with a temporary fix to make sure that there's no safety issues? Because that's presumably, you were mentioning it's an egress door for upstairs and the bottom unit. And if there was something he could do in the meantime to kind of take care of it.
That I mean, that's the catch-22, because if you put something down, the door opens inward. You can't put something on top of the floor. We still end up having to lift up the floor.
And this is why we don't make recommendations, because we, at least in my case. So I guess, Lisa, my thought is that, somebody should probably provide the board, a contractor, somebody who's a little more knowledgeable than I am, whether something should be done temporarily while the tenants are still there. The rest of the issues, obviously they said they can fix within that time frame. The fascia boards, it's not a safety issue at this point here. That just it's trim on the house that needs to be replaced.
Right.
The radiator floor, how far that's soft. I mean, it's right around the radiator at one of the windows. It's soft. So again, how much of an imminent threat that might be. And I understand the point that there's really nowhere to fall under it except that you can fall down your ankles or so, or it's not a good situation if somebody falls through a floor, no matter how far they fall down through. So I certainly would entertain whatever kind of temporary fix a contractor would provide to say that, yes, this will be safe for the time being, until, the real work to actually get into the house itself and make the permanent fix.
Okay, so the handyman that's doing most of the work next week, we'll talk to him about the kitchen, the bathroom floors, and also these two areas.
Other than that safety issue, I mean, the bulk of the stuff's being done. So if my understanding is the threshold repair, the radiator floor, the fascia boards are what you're looking for an extension of time on.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Till when?
Late fall
What
is our current estimate based on talking with our contractor.
I'm sorry. What do you mean by late fall? That could be December the 20th or the 19th. So,
I mean, on the other hand, no one will be living in the unit after September 1st. So the unit will be vacant, and no one will be in a danger of falling through the floor.
That's good.
is there any arrangement, Jim, as far as you know, is this departure of the tenant is required because this unit is not livable? Is that correct?
No, that's not the situation. We're not the ones asking the tenants to not be there any longer. We did the inspection for the tenants. If the work was done and everything, all the violations corrected, there's no issues with them staying in the unit except for the relationship that they have with the property owner.
I see.
But the repairs can't be done while they're there. So they do have to, in fact, vacate for the ordered repairs to be done.
I agree with the property owner that to do the work that they're talking about, it would be challenging to have people in the house while you're trying to lift and tear out that door. Like I said, I don't think it's just a matter, particularly on that Shattuck Street side. Again, I'm not a contractor, but looking at the water damage and where it may be coming from, that's not just, I'm going to take up a piece of plywood, put down a new piece, put the new
Right.
floor on it, be done with it. It's,
Never, yeah.
well, I was
never-
going to say, you're going to get into the door frame and probably the sills and the floor there. And
Okay, so the other piece of this is that when you've asked the tenant to leave in order to effect these repairs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just curious, are you providing any compensation for those tenants to find housing interim while, shall we say, they were, quote, would ordinarily be in that unit?
So to be clear, we asked the tenant to vacate in June prior to this inspection being requested. So we asked them to vacate to do structural repairs, given advice from a structural engineer that was unrelated to this list. They then called in this list. They then called in a Board of Health inspection. I'm not totally clear on that. We didn't know. These things are not things that we had ever been asked to fix by the tenant.
Yeah, I've just mentioned it's not the tenant's responsibility to maintain the integrity and the safety and compliance with code. It's up to the owner.
Yes.
Yes, which is why we asked the tenants to vacate so we could
No,
do repairs.
What has me a little bit concerned is that owners don't go into their units and independently have them routinely assessed to see what the status of it, and they depend on tenants to make complaints. And I think that there's a difference between ownership and rent. So I'll just stop. It's out of the scope here.
Kevin, go ahead.
If you entertain a motion to grant the extension, 30-day extension on those 3 items, as long as the building commissioner has in fact gone in, deemed there be no immediate safety issue.
I second.
What date are you thinking, Kevin?
September 1st.
So that's when they're leaving. Does that make sense?
So 30 days from today to have those 3 items repaired. But would that be the 28th of August?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you want to give them to September 1st?
28th of August is probably just, well.
The tenants will still be there. So if we're just talking about the 3 flooring items that require lifting up the floors,
They won't be able to do it with the tenants there.
Okay, so let's say September 1st then, extension till September 1st.
Well, that only gives them a couple days to get somebody into.
the tenant is not going to be out until September 1st.
Yeah, once the tenant's out, it doesn't matter. They'll fix these items and they can't occupy the unit until they're repaired.
And re-inspected.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? September 1st?
Yeah.
Modify.
I do have one
Mike?
quick question if we can before we vote.
I have another.
This is
Go ahead.
this is listed as 12 Shattuck Unit 1. Is there another unit or are there more units in this building that also could potentially be affected by this? And
That
these
was my
hazards?
question.
Oh, sorry, Lisa. I was going to say, and
That's
so
all
are
right.
these
That's all right.
potential hazards to other units that actually have residents in them?
There is an upstairs tenant. We sent her the inspection. We asked her if there's anything she wanted us to do. She tends to prefer her privacy. We do work with her when she does need things. I mean, I see your face, Mike. You want us to do better, and we can work on that. I mean, I also acknowledge that we have owned this house since 2013. I've been trying to get an exterior painter. It is not good looking right now. It's not a credit to the town. We've been trying to work on that the last couple of years. And I'm going to just start networking better because the 3 painters I've called for the past year have not returned my calls. So we've been working on it, but I acknowledge we need to do better.
So I guess piggybacking on Dan's question I had was, will the upstairs tenant have to be displaced if the whole floor ways of egress front and back have to be ripped up and replaced?
She has She has a separate entrance with her own stairs. So we will take a look at emergency egress because that would be the only issue. And I think she has another way.
All right. So everybody in agreement, we give them until September 1st to get the those three items corrected. Is that how we do this, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, so you would vote to modify the order to allow an extension of time for the specific issues that are, and with the understanding that the unit can't be reoccupied until the Board of Health comes back in and verifies that all of the violations are corrected. And then what I can do is I can write up a letter with the modifications for the property owners.
Okay. Kevin, did you want to make that motion for us again?
So moved.
I second.
All right, roll call. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Peter Ferrone, yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
and Mike Zeldin,
Mike Sheldon, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. All right. Good luck with that. That sounds like quite a project.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
guidance.
Yep.
All right. Jim, did you want to touch on well regulations?
So nothing, just as you described, I just wanted to touch on it. So I think it was last year or was the year before, I don't know, with COVID, I don't remember years anymore. So
Last year we had a drought. Yeah.
drought, and so we had the water department in because we were concerned with irrigation wells. Haven't issued too many irrigation wells this year, one or two. But
Well, we haven't needed any irrigation.
and at some level, crossing my fingers, it stays wet for a while, so we don't. Also helps the groundwater table for the town wells too. So, but I think maybe it's a time now to kind of consider looking at your well regulations, because there are other things that would be nice to address that aren't in your current set of well regulations. For instance, we deal with geothermal wells now, so it'd be nice to have those in consideration, along with how you might want to address irrigation wells. The state has, one of the concerns, obviously the water department came in to express, but we're concerned when people drill their own wells is their well providing enough water for the house? And so one of the things the state did, and what I'll do is, as part of this discussion, I will send you all a copy of DEP's model well regulations. So the state doesn't regulate private wells, local boards of health do, but they do have a really nice document that I will send all of you to take a look at. And you can kind of pick and choose on how you want to address it. But one of the things that's now in there is a way of determining adequate quantity for a house. So that would be nice. I kind of do that anyway. Not that it's in your regulations, but I have no problem making sure that somebody has enough water in a house that they're selling to somebody else, because I don't want the call that the person ran out of water. And so we're already kind of doing that, but it'd be nice to have that codified in your well regulation.
Yeah.
So enough to say that I will send all of you this document. And even before the meeting, if you have questions or ideas or whatnot, I'm more than happy to either individually or emails or whatever. It's a pretty big document. Your well regulations aren't, I think they were probably developed in the late 80s, where a lot of towns started having regulations for wells. And a lot has happened in groundwater quantities and contamination since then. So I guess that would be all I'd want to mention there. Is it'd be nice to have start that conversation.
Okay. We'll put you back on keep talking about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the next thing is, did anybody have any other questions or comments about the well regulations?
No, let's wait for the document.
Okay. What's our COVID update?
It's still here.
I know. Mike informed me that yesterday via text.
So
that the virus is still here.
I think I had sent you an email, Lisa, just to kind of give you a heads up. There's been so much talk about the cases increasing. So I wanted boards to have at least a sense of what that meant in their community. And so the first half of July, we weren't seeing many cases. Matter of fact, pretty few cases throughout the district. Then all of a sudden, about the middle of July, we started seeing case numbers going up. And so what I did was I provided a couple of numbers in the information that I sent. From July 1st to the 14th, there were no cases in Littleton. And then from the 15th to the 26th, which is kind of the period that I was the email went out shortly thereafter. There were 3 cases in town. So not gangbusters, but I just want to let you know, in some of the other towns, the numbers popped a little bit more. And it was kind of like, what's happening here? Similar sounding thing. There's multiple cases at single addresses. So whether somebody picked it up and brought it home, whether it was part of travel. But what it also did, I provided Lisa with a chart of your vaccination rates broken down by age. That's from the state Department of Public Health's website. And I guess one other thing I did because I was curious and I figured Mike would ask me the question. So I did my research, hopefully before Mike asked me the question. I was kind of curious too. It's like, you're starting to hear about breakthrough cases. And so one of the things I wanted to do is take a look at from July 1st to the 24th, I'm sorry for different time frames, but that's the time frame in which I was looking at this. We had about 51 cases throughout the district, so in the 16 towns. And so what I did was I went through the MAVEN record, so each individual record of someone who has tested positive, to take a look at a couple of things, what towns they were in, so I had a sense of that, how old they were. I want to try to get a sense of the age distribution, whether they were vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and kind of when they were vaccinated, and then any kind of note that the nurse had put in there about why or contributing factors potentially. And again, it's a very small number, so I really caution how the information is used, but I figured I'd tell you just because I went through looking at the 51 cases, it looked like there was probably about 17 people who were fully or partially vaccinated. So a pretty high percentage of people. The vaccines, it's a mix. The 17 were kind of equally split between Moderna and Pfizer, and a few J&J in there just because there were a few J&J in there. The fully vaccinated were anywhere from starting in January, some of the initial cases. The bulk of them were more recently. So a lot of the cases, the fully vaccinated were, April, May, June. March, April, May. The age distribution, my first thought was, they're all kids because they couldn't get vaccinated. No, only about 10% of them were kids. When I say kids, 12 or under. The bulk of them, 60% or so, were in that 20 to 50 age range. So that's kind of and if you look at some of the towns, when I pulled Littleton's, I pulled all the other towns too. Some of the vaccination by age group, that 20 to 40 in some towns is kind of lean. Littleton seems to have pretty strong numbers vaccination wise, which is very good. So we're looking at the cases. There wasn't much in the way of the investigators' notes to kind of indicate that they all were vacationing at Provincetown during that time frame. But a couple of things popped up. Somebody mentioned they had recently been to a concert, and somebody said, "Geez, we're down in Disney vacationing." So there's a few cases like that. The only other thing I might say is that kind of hints throughout the nurses' notes of people tired of COVID and tired of, to the point where cooperation's not, something we're seeing is robust of. They're still getting through. They're still making the investigation. A couple of surprising things. A couple of cases where somebody was sick and they were, the nurses are talking to them about, the steps they need to take to kind of get out of isolation, and then counseling on getting vaccinated. And there's still some people who aren't going to get vaccinated even though they have a case of COVID. So there was at least a couple of those I noted. So I guess the other big thing is obviously CDC's advisory yesterday. And I think the important distinction, which I'm not sure everybody pays attention to, is the advisory, the recommendation is for masks indoors in those communities where their spread is substantial or high. And so you can go to the CDC website and they have a nice little map that you can click on. And it's a very, when the map comes up, it's kind of stark about where the high concentrations are, and it's most of the country, and where the moderate rates are, which are upper Midwest and the Northeast. So in Massachusetts, there are 5 counties, I think, at this point that are either substantial or high. Bristol, Suffolk, Dukes, and Nantucket, I think, are substantial. The Cape, I think, is considered high. The rest of the state, except for I think probably Hampshire County, if I remember where the counties are placed, Upper Hampshire County is low, and the rest of the state's moderate. So we, Littleton, the district, are still in moderate transmission areas. Again, the advisory also talks about having teachers, students wear masks, or recommending wearing masks when they return to school this fall. So we at the health, we are waiting for Department of Public Health and the governor and Department of Early and Secondary Education to come up with what their guidance is going to be going forward for the fall. I know the governor was mentioning that there's a lot of reasons why here in Massachusetts we may pause and take our time trying to figure out how we might want to apply this recommendation. Obviously, we have, as he was mentioning, the second highest vaccination rate in the state, and otherwise doing well on other metrics that he mentioned in the press conference today. So I guess that's my update. We're waiting for guidance from Department of Public Health. I don't know if you have any questions.
I just want to let everybody know that school committee is meeting on August 11th, and they're going to be talking about masking, whether or not they're going to do it or not. So that's all I have to add to that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for Jim. Jim, based on past experience, or at least not just Jim, but anyone here, what would you use as an indicator? Because at the moment, what we're looking at is basically almost like background noise as far as the disease is concerned in this town and many other towns around us. I mean, there are other diseases that are going on right now that are higher in number. So my question is, what would you suggest using? Because during the summer, obviously the public is far more mobile, and there's nothing that stops someone going into an area, whether it's the Cape or Florida or Texas or the wrong side of Los Angeles or whatever, and inadvertently even fully vaccinated people bringing stuff back. So my question is that what kind of numbers should we be watching in time to tell us that it's time to, shall we say, recommend more, shall we say, cautious precautions put in place?
So I'm not sure a particular number. One of the things I want to do is keep paying attention to or keep reviewing those Maven notes to try to mine whatever information may be that kind of gives us some indications. Are we seeing large events that are causing transmission? Are we seeing, the camps? So far, I think and again, this is district-wide, not just in Littleton. I think we've had a couple of calls about people at camps, and in one case, the camp actually does Bioneck testing before the kids get out of the car. And so in that case, the kid didn't get out of the car. They went home, which is the right answer. I've inspected the camp there in town, and we've talked about where they should be wearing masks at camp and where it's probably okay that they don't. So to me, those gatherings, to the extent that we're seeing more evidence of breakthrough that maybe is indicating that the variant is winning.
Variants always win. Variants always win.
Well, or a new variant comes,
Yeah.
I guess that would be something. So I'd like to say I wish there was a specific number, but the numbers generally have been pretty small with the exception of two communities that had, a bump, a more significant bump that really like what's happening here. And we looked and again, it was multiple units, multiple people at the same addresses. So I think it's just a matter of taking a look at what we're getting for data to see what might be a reasonable metric.
And I take it, you didn't mention it, but I take the hospitalizations. In other words, we're no longer stressing shall we say, the healthcare delivery system.
And I think the governor mentioned that we're second on, the hospitalizations. It's in a good way.
Yeah.
The lowest number of so again, I think that's the metrics they're looking at. And again, that's why I think I really want to take cues from them about what's happening, because they're seeing it at a much larger scale than I'm seeing, even with 16 towns.
Yeah, I just keep looking at the map of, to remind myself, I look at the map of who we're connected with, from Boston up to New Hampshire and Maine and, and also Logan Airport. Every time I go over there now, it's always, gee, should I wear my plastic suit? So anyway, it's okay.
and I think one of the things I think is important is we want to be out front with the message, but we want to make sure that the public feels that the message is matching what they're seeing too. Because I think there is some fatigue in talking with people. I'm sure all of you who are talking with people are just over it. And that's not a great place to be because we still need to be vigilant with it. And so making sure people are vaccinating, making sure they're making choices that are reasonable about what they do. And what I think is reasonable, what they may think is reasonable is different. But I think CDC kind of provides you with a guidance of what might be reasonable, what not. I wish I had the answer. Like I said, the vaccination component of it is a little frustrating in that it couldn't probably be easier to get a vaccination if you're 12 and above, with all kinds of incentives, not only the ones that the state are offering, but, I don't know, they heard something down at Gillette, some kind of football related. I mean, so there's all kinds of ways to kind of take advantage of the system and get vaccinated at the same time.
Did anybody win the Vax Millions last week?
I don't know how I guess the drawing was Tuesday, but it sounded like
they announced it until Thursday. Yeah,
but they verify. They do verification first before they announce it. I don't know.
That would make sense. They said that actually your odds of winning the $1 million is better than playing the lottery because 300 million people play the lottery, but only 1 million people have applied to the Vax Millions. So your odds are better winning Vax Millions than of the regular lottery. So.
And they mentioned for the kids, it's even better. It's like 1 in 27,000 or 1 in 30,000.
They don't get the cash though. They get a scholarship or something, right?
But hopefully their parents are like, that's not a bad deal.
Yeah. I'm getting my kid back.
Hey,
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jim regarding the COVID update? Does anybody think we need to ask Katrina back, or are we good for a little while?
I think we should wait. Wait. Yeah, wait.
I'm in touch with Katrina. Don't worry. Don't worry.
You'll let us know when she needs to come back.
No, she'll let you know when it's right to come back and tell you about what's going on really out there. I mean,
so Lisa, if in that case, Lisa, if Katrina thought there was some information that I could kind of glean from the records, Mike can just let me know, or Katrina can let me know directly. However, I'm happy to try to get that for her.
She mentioned everything you mentioned, including mask resistance, and we need to get. She's also concerned, as some of us are, about there's still people who are like among the elder population who have, our numbers haven't changed. The numbers for older folks who are vaccinated haven't changed in town. Yeah. And that may be due to people who just won't ever get vaccinated. So, but other than that, the focus now is on the fall and what we're going to be looking at. Of course, nobody knows yet.
Mm-hmm. Just hoping for a nice, long, warm fall so we can still all be outside for a while.
Yes, that would help immensely.
Yes.
Are we talking late fall?
Right into December would be nice.
Yes.
Just from our last conversation.
Oh,
all right.
Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments about COVID?
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jamie, for what you're doing. You keep us alert.
So we're going to want to move on to administrative matters. Correspondence. Jim, you sent me something from Lasting Environmental Solutions. Or did you forward that? Yeah. Is that just a notification? A release notification form has been submitted to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection for the discovery of petroleum impacts to soil and groundwater at the above referenced property.
So those are notifications that they send out, kind of the initial
20 Taylor Street.
Yep. So that's notification of the board that a spill has occurred, and DEP handles the cleanup and the process for cleaning up the properties.
Okay, so that's it's just a correspondence.
So that can go on the file for the property.
Nothing that we have to discuss. Okay. Anybody else have any correspondence?
Nope.
All right. right, move on to member comments. Any comments at all?
Just have one. Has anyone
Mike.
heard from any progress on the point?
I have not, but that was supposed to be related to DEP.
I thought maybe Jim has heard
I have not, no.
Okay.
I talked to Dave Boyer today, who's one of the persons who handles that kind of stuff, but next time I talk with him, I can ask where they're at.
just where it's at.
Thank you.
Any other member comments? Kevin, Dan, Gino?
No, thank you.
Public comments? Doesn't look like anybody's on anymore.
Nope.
Happens when you run late. All right. And just approving the minutes for June 23rd. So I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 23rd.
I second.
We'll do a roll call. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Jennifer, yes.
Dan Kane.
Ben Kane, yes.
Mike, were you there?
No.
Okay. So, all right. Very good. So next meeting, Janet?
August.
So like I said, it's the 11th, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
The next one's the 11th.
So there might be a conflict with that because I did look at the school committee's agenda and it's 7 o'clock on the 11th also.
That's
So,
okay. You can both be meeting at the same time.
oh, okay. I didn't know if LCTV has.
No,
an
no,
issue
they
with
have
that.
like 3 or 4 every night.
Okay. All right. Great. So we'll meet on the 11th at 7.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Awesome.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
And Mike can't be there on the 11th.
No, could I just, I'm sorry, could I just give
Sure.
a quick reminder? To those of you who may have already in your files, I'd like you all to take another look at the sample resume
Job description.
that was sent out some time ago. That's just a working draft. It's just to inspire. It's not to be submitted. And this is all in connection with, hopefully we will be able to meet with the select board to have a follow-up discussion on the future of the Board of Health. They've agreed to have that meeting with us, but no date has been set. And I want to make sure that all of us are prepared, whether you're going to attend or not, or available to attend or not. I'd just like to have all of you prepared with your insights and comments, and probably at a meeting, if obviously not at the next one, but maybe after that one or soon, we can all sort of get together and have a discussion about what we're going after more specifically.
All right.
Whoa,
Thank
whoa.
you. All right.
Behave yourself, Gino.
So, Janet, depending on the agenda, do you want to put that, like just a little discussion on what Mike was just saying? He wanted it added as a proposed agenda item if we're not too busy on the 11th.
I won't be here for the 11th.
You won't be here, so do you want us to wait for you to discuss, or?
It's your decision.
Let's go ahead. If she's talking to somebody. Who are you talking to?
Sorry, my daughter came home. That's why the dog went berserk.
Can we add discussion of the
Yes.
the draft for description of a director to the next agenda, or just a discussion? Mike won't be here, but Mike, and
Yep, I heard.
does everybody have that email
Yep.
that Mike sent out with the health director and other doc?
Dan may not. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to double check.
Yeah, July 21st. All right. So, great. So did we get a motion to adjourn?
I made the motion already. Motion to adjourn.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All right. So roll call, Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Everyone, yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. Thank you, gentlemen. Mike, have a